Simplifying expressions. Simplifying means to do all possible operations in the right order. And that right order we know by the memory device or mnemonic device, PEMDAS. Now P stands for parentheses, but it really means do any operations inside grouping symbols. And there are more grouping symbols than just parentheses. There are brackets, there are absolute values, there's radicals. E stands for exponents, so any numbers with exponents on them. And that includes if there are any square roots, because those do count as exponents. Well, the MD stands for multiply and divide. Sometimes people thinks that means multiply first then divide, but it actually means do multiplication and division from left to right, whichever one comes first. And of course the A and the S stand for add and subtract. Again, not add and then subtract, but add and subtract whichever one comes first from left to right. And expressions in math means numbers and sometimes variables and operations. So 2 plus 3, that would be an expression. 2 times in parentheses 4 minus 8 squared, that would be an expression, but also an expression would be like 2x. So those are expressions. So we're going to be simplifying expressions. But we're also going to be writing expressions, and that's the first thing we're going to do, is to write and simplify. Well, the directions say write an expression with rational numbers and then solve. So the Hawks lose 10 yards on first down for holding. They gain 6 yards each play for the next 3 downs. They decide to go for it on fourth down and gain 5 yards. How many yards did the Hawks gain overall? Well, we want to write the expression first. So losing 10 yards would definitely be a negative 10. But then they gain 6 yards for the next 3 downs. Well, if we're going to do a plus 6 plus 6 plus 6, that's what multiplication is. So plus 3 groups of 6, or 3 times 6. And then on fourth down, they gain 5 more yards. So how many did they gain overall? Well, our order of operations, what we have is 2 additions and a multiplication. So we start with the multiplication. That's 18. And now we have negative 10 plus 18 plus 5. And now we need to go from left to right. Negative 10 plus 18 is 8 plus 5. That equals 13 yards. We should always put our units on our answer. What it doesn't ask is, did they make their first down? And since their overall gain was 13 yards, yes, they made their first down with 3 to spare. But their overall gain was 13 yards. Now, percent error is simply the actual value minus the estimated value all over the actual value. So let's say that I estimate that 20 kids will watch this video to help them with their homework, but only 7 actually watch it. So what's the percent error? Well, the actual value 7 minus the estimated value 20, all divided by the actual value 7. So this equals negative 13 divided by 7. So when we divide that, that equals negative 1.857, and it goes on from there, ... Well, remember, to turn this into a percent, we still need to multiply it by 100. So that would be negative 186 if we round to the nearest percent error. And now the negative indicates that the estimate was over, or that the actual number was less than the estimate. Let's say, however, that I think I currently have about 37 subscribers. Let's say that all 37 watch it. So now the actual number is 37. Yeah, something with sevens today, right? Minus 20, and then over 37. So 37 minus 20 is a positive 17, and then we divide that by 37. That equals a positive 0.459, and it goes on from there, and then I multiply that by 100 to turn it into a percent, and if I round to the nearest percent, that's 46% error. And the fact that it is a positive means that the actual number was greater than the estimate. Lastly, we want to look at evaluating expressions. So we've already defined the word expressions. That's going to be numbers and sometimes variables and operations. But what does evaluate mean? Well, evaluate means substitute and solve. And substitute means to replace the variable with its value, with its given value. And solve means to do all the operations in their correct order again. So let's get an expression. So let's evaluate 1 5/6x minus 2 3/4 for x equals negative 1 1/2. So our very first step is to substitute. So I first rewrite it as 1 5/6 times negative 1 1/2 minus 2 3/4. Well, now dealing with fractions, the next thing I'm going to do is to turn them all into improper fractions. I'll change color just to show a new step. So 1 5/6. So we do 6 times 1 plus 5. That's how we turn a mixed number into an improper fraction. So 6 times 1 is 6, plus 5 is 11 6 times negative, and I always put the negative in the numerator, 2 times 1 plus 1. So negative 3/2 minus, again, 4 times 2 plus 3. So that's 11/4. Well, now we have an order of operation. We have multiply and we have subtract, so we need to multiply first. And the nice thing about fractions is that when you multiply, you don't need a common denominator or anything. All you need to do is multiply straight across the top and straight across the bottom. So this gives me negative 33 over 12 minus 11/4. Now, instead of writing minus 11/4, something that we can do is to add the opposite. And so what I mean by that is turn minus into plus a negative. And the reason why I like to do that is now I'm just adding two negative fractions. Now I do need a common denominator, so I'm going to go ahead and multiply negative 11/4 by 1 in the form of 3 over 3. Remember, when we multiply by 1, we're not changing its value, just the way it looks. So this is going to equal, so we're still going to write down the first fraction, negative 33/12 plus, well, look at that, negative 33/12. So I guess the other thing I could have done is simplified this fraction. But now we know that that's going to equal negative 66/12. And then we are going to need to simplify that. We divide the top and bottom by 6. And that gives me negative 11/2. And if we simplify that into a mixed number, 2 goes into 11, negative 5 times with 1 left over. and that 1 is left over too, so negative 5.5. But there is evaluating, meaning substitute and solve, an expression.